purpose of this video is for you to be able to solve electromagnetic radiations equations. For example, whether or not if you wanted to solve for the frequency of light or of its wavelength. Now, before we do this, I need to review a couple things. Some important terms. Wavelength, you're going to need, for example, one of the important terms is wavelength, and you're going to need to know these things symbols and these things units and value. Some of these are just always have a same value. So wavelength, its symbol is lambda, and its unit, or its standard unit, is meters. Its frequency symbol is nu. It's pronounced just like the word NEW, nu. And its unit is hertz. The speed of light symbol is c. And its value is 3.00 e to the 8th meters per second. Planck's constant, which is a constant that helps you figure out how much energy a given electromagnetic ray has, is that value, 6.26 e to the negative 34th joules per second. And energy is measured in joules. Now, here we go. First problem, solving for frequency. I read the problem, and I know I'm solving for frequency because it says determine the frequency. And then I know that the wavelength here is this. And I also know I'm dealing with light. So my info, I know that I'm solving for frequency, so nu is x. I know that my wavelength is this. And I know that this, the speed is that because it's light. Now, since this is in centimeters, I'm going to have to convert it to meters. So I set it up like that, such that my centimeters will cancel, and I know that there's 100 centimeters in a meter. Then I multiply across, and I get this. And then that's my new value for wavelength that I'm going to use when I substitute in. Find the formula. It's nu is equal to speed divided by wavelength. So the next step is to substitute in. And I substitute in, and I get 3.00 e to the 8th meters per second divided by 4.257 e to the 9th meters. And then I would solve this. And by solving it, I plug it into a calculator and calculate it. And now the last step is to figure out how many sig figs I'm going to need or have. Light has 3 and this is 4, so I'd round my answer such that it has 4. Excuse me, such that it has 3. So I go in 1, 2, 3. I look to the 7 rounds up, and therefore I end up with 7.05 hertz. And therefore that's my answer for frequency. Now here's another one. I'm solving for wavelength. Now, I read the problem, and the first thing I do is, given the speed is this, then it says calculate wavelength, and the frequency of this thing is that. So there, I know there's all my information. I know what I know and where I want to go. Then I would figure out the formula that I'm going to need, and that's lambda, or wavelength, is the speed divided by the frequency. And then I substitute in. So I plug this into that, and this into that, and I end up with x is that over that. And then I would do the division. Divide this number by this number. And I get x is equal to this. The last thing I need to do is worry about sig figs. Now here, this value of the speed of light only has 2 sig figs, so I would need to adjust my answer such that it has 2. So the answer is 4.0 e to the negative 5th meters. Now, this last problem solves for energy, and it says how much energy, and then it tells me the frequency is this. So, based upon those 2 clues, I know that there's my frequency, and I know I want to know energy. Now I have to remember that I know Planck's constant, which is this big number, or long number. It's not really a big number, it's extremely small. And I need to find out what formula I'm going to use, and that's this one. Energy is h multiplied by the frequency. Then I'm going to substitute in. This number goes in for that value, and that number goes into that value. So I get x is equal to 7.5 e to the 12th hertz times 6.626 e to the negative 34th joules a second. And the last thing I need to do is solve it, and that is basically plug it into a calculator and number crunch. So I get 49 times 10, 49.695 e to the negative 22nd joules, and then I would round it and write it in correct format. These each have 4, so my answer can only have 4. So I look at the first 4 numbers and round this one accordingly. 5 rounds up, so this is going to become a 0. And that's a 7. It will become a 7. So it's going to be 49.70, and I need to move the decimal over this way. So the number becomes 4.970 e to the negative 21st joules.